Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to the Conflict Zone YouTube channel. Today, significant developments are unfolding in the ORIV direction. Russian forces have opted for a surprise offensive operation right after the recent seizure of Aiva. The current reports indicate a sustained high intensity of attacks in this region. The core strategy behind this impromptu offensive is to take advantage of Ukrainian forces being caught off guard. There was an anticipation that Ukrainians might shift a segment of their garrison from this direction to Aiva to address and stabilize the front line. The fiercest confrontations are unfolding in Robotyne, marked by Russian forces initiating dual attack vectors. The assaults target Ukrainian positions on the outskirts from both the south and the southwest. These specific areas boast significant fortifications, with Ukrainians in control of extensive trench networks. Despite enduring noticeable damage over nearly 9 months of conflict, these fortifications continue to pose formidable obstacles. In a prior incident, these obstacles played a pivotal role in thwarting significant mechanized attacks, involving up to 30 tanks, armored vehicles, and hundreds of soldiers. Despite the destruction of units, with survivors reaching the initial houses in the village for refuge, Russian media outlets portrayed it as a triumph. Declarations of victory of this nature guarantee that Russian commanders will instigate another wave of attacks to sustain the narrative. Failure to do so would risk undermining the credibility of the Russian commanders. The subsequent significant attack originated from the south, with geolocated combat footage indicating the use of multiple armored fighting vehicles carrying several dozen soldiers. These vehicles actively suppressed Ukrainian fire while attempting to penetrate deep into the village to deploy infantry near more intact houses than on the outskirts. Analysts concluded that this coordinated Russian attack caught Ukrainians by surprise, explaining why they couldn't halt the Russians on the approaches and had to engage in urban fighting. Russian sources reported that Russian infantry assumed their positions in the local school and continued trying to develop their attack further despite the heavy pressure from the Russian infantry, whose attacks were supported by constant artillery fire. Ukrainian forces managed to retain control over the northern half of the village and break the Russian momentum. Once the momentum was halted, Ukrainians initiated counterattacks to re-establish control over the southern part of the village. Even though Russian sources claimed that the attack was successful, referring to the footage of the initial breakthrough, Ukrainian sources asserted that the Russian attack failed and posted videos showing destroyed equipment and personnel, along with lone survivors seeking shelter. To be fair, the Ukrainians barely managed to retain control over their positions. The Russian commanders, who were observing the battle from drones, understood that this attack significantly undermined the Ukrainian defensive capabilities and started planning the night attack. As it turned out, after Ukrainians evacuated the wounded, there were only 4 fighters left on the positions. They anticipated receiving reinforcements within hours. However, the Russian attack came much sooner, as the intense footage of the night battle reveals. These 4 Ukrainian fighters accepted the battle against 3 armored fighting vehicles and 24 soldiers. The Russian assault unit started incurring losses already on the approach, as one of their armored vehicles blew up on a mine. One of the 4 Ukrainian fighters immediately doubled the damage by hitting the second armored vehicle with an RPG. Only the third armored fighting vehicle managed to reach the planned destination and landed the infantry in front of the Ukrainian positions. The 4 Ukrainian soldiers immediately engaged the attackers and did not allow them to get close. The coordinated gunfire immobilized the Russians and made them an easy target for the Ukrainian artillery, mortar, and drone crews, who supported the 4 Ukrainian soldiers on the ground with vicious intensity. Despite suffering multiple injuries from gunfire and shrapnel from high-explosive shells, the 4 Ukrainian fighters continued to stand their ground until the attack was completely repelled. When the reinforcements arrived, the 4 soldiers withdrew for medical treatment, while the fresh units conducted searches in basements, capturing any Russians who survived the night. The recent battle in Robotyne vividly illustrates the reasons behind the sluggish and unstable progress of Russian forces in the region. The unwavering determination of Ukrainian fighters to hold their ground, even against overwhelming odds, ensures that Russians endure a substantial cost for every meter gained. This compels Russian forces to resort to human wave attacks, as overwhelming Ukrainian forces and rendering them incapable of tracking all moving targets becomes crucial for any hope of securing new advancements. In such a scenario, Ukrainians can enforce a high kill-death ratio, turning the attrition warfare imposed by Russians into a self-destructive strategy. If you oppose the invasion of Ukraine and wish to support the cause, stay informed by subscribing to Conflict Zone for the latest updates on the ongoing conflict and efforts to resist aggression.